If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come into America.
Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. And with us today is Lynn Shaw. She talks about things that are hurting our kids. Dr. Peter Michalos on Live Long and Prosper. Steve Cates, also known as Dr. Sky. What's going on out there? Congressman Jim Jordan, Judiciary Committee, so many things happening in Washington. He's going to tell us about them. Brigadier General Blaine Holt, how do engines fall off of airplanes? Congressman Brian Jack, recruiting a new crew of congresspeople for 2026. John Terrett on the stock market and the economy. And let's start off on what's going on in the world of banking with the CEO of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan. With us today is Brian Moynihan, Chairman, President, and CEO of Bank of America, the second largest bank in the United States and one of the biggest in the world. Good morning, Brian. How are you today?
Well, it's good to talk to you, John.
Now, we're talking about investing. There was some criticism, Brian, that you were trailing the top five in return on investment or on the stock market portfolio. What are we going to do to catch up? I predicted $60 a share last year, and are we going to get there?
Well, we're doing everything we can. The third quarter, John, we earned $8.5 billion and had 11% revenue growth and 6% operating leverage and grew deposits 4%, loans I think 8%. So, and returns were around 15%. So it was a good quarter, and that gives us a good launch pad towards the next year. As we look forward, our job is just to do a great job for our customers, and we continue to do that. So, the returns follow that. We outperform the S&P year to date. We outperform the bank index. But with the capital markets, people are more oriented to capital markets. We've done well there, but it's not as big a business for us. We have a more bank-oriented balance sheet. So as that, sort of the transfer takes place in the economy and our net interest income grows, you should expect us to catch up, and we'll continue to drive it hard.
Is there any concerns with what's happening in New York with the change of mayors? Because some of the people in the real estate industry are concerned that there's going to be certain restrictions, et cetera, et cetera.
Look, I think we got to find out what the policies that will be of a sitting, and when the mayor's inducted, what the policies of a sitting mayor. And our job is to make sure that we give the best advice to politicians in New York and around the country. We have, I think, 16,000 people working on the island of Manhattan alone. So New York is extremely important to us, and we'll make sure that we give our best advice, and hopefully they'll take it.
What part of the country is leading in growth? It looks like Texas and Florida, people are flocking to it because of their taxation laws, etc. Give us your pulse of the United States and the world.
So I think if you look around the world, we believe the global economy will finish the year about 3% GDP growth. We think the United States will finish the year about 1.89, almost 2% GDP growth. And we think as we look at next year, those numbers are fairly much the same. And that's good because there's a lot of change going on, a lot of resetting of policies in the globe and around the world. Also, activities that cause uncertainty for business. But if you look at the United States, when we grow 2%, that's a big economy growing at a decent rate and a rate that we all hope could be faster. And if we look at it, what we see is the American consumer continues in the aggregate. The American consumer represented at Bank of America, which is a big part of it. They spend about $4.5 trillion a year out of their accounts each year, and we track that every day, week, and month. And if you look for the month of October, they moved about almost 6% plus out of their accounts into the economy, which was stronger than what it was for the third quarter. And that's 6% more than they did last year. And so we feel very good about the American consumer continuing to be in the game, spending money. And you read about in the press differences between higher income and more moderate income, but it's growing across the board. The growth rates are a little stronger in the higher income. But the good news is people are spending money. And if the consumer spends money in the U.S., that means our business clients are getting sales and we'll make some money, and that'll be good. I think when you go to the small business and business community, I think the keys are to have the policy of taxation is now settled at the federal level. The policy of trade and tariffs are getting clearer for business, and I think you're hearing less about businesses struggling with trying to figure out what's going to happen, and there's sort of there's a range of outcomes of which they can adjust to. But I think the thing that's also that our small businesses tell us is on their mind is worker availability. And so you have this interesting question going on where there's weakness in the labor markets, less hiring and stuff because of a lot of stuff that's talked about technology. But on the other hand, you have businesses because of the constraint on immigration and things, which that has got to sort out. So that if I'm in the construction business, I got to have the workers to do those jobs. So I think they're all looking for clarity on that policy, and I think that'll probably come clean over the next few months.
I spent 2 hours with President Trump last week, and he was telling us that he is concentrating on bringing back industry and companies to the United States. How do you see that happening? Is that what's the time period you feel that could be?
Well, I think if you go back, in the end of the day, despite the debates we have about this state's policies, this city's policies, or that city's policies, and what's going on, the United States is still the best place for businesses to invest. It's a big economy. It's growing. The consumers spend money. The final demand is extremely strong compared to any other economy in the world. There's tremendous wealth here. There's tremendous productivity, et cetera. So if you think about the rule of law, the talent, that's all terrific. And so I think it's always been long term. And now with the idea that the Trump administration has had to equate people who may have been subsidizing their businesses to be competitive, non-tariff barriers, and even just straight tariffs, both for national security and general, competitive purposes, I think it's becoming a better place to invest. So when I talk to our clients from around the world, they're saying, okay, I know if I want to sell X in the United States, a product in the United States, I'm going to need to build more capacity, and I will do that as long as I'm sure that these policies won't get changed a lot. And I think as the aggregate percentage of the tariffs come down, there's more assuredness, honestly, they'll stay in place. For example, in President Trump's first term, there were tariffs made. The discussion was, they're going to come off, and they never did. I think as these numbers get to be, 15%, 20%, I think they'll stay in place, and I think business then can depend on their business models to make those investments. What they'll aggregate up to, you got the AI piece, which is almost unique, to both power and data centers and stuff. That's almost a unique aspect. But in the general economy, it's going to come down to, really finding the means of production, being able to do it on an economic basis, and be able to serve the customers, taking into account that if they bring stuff in from other countries, it may be more expensive to bring it in. So I think it'll favor the U.S., and we'll see that play out. But it'll take time for people to build that capacity up.
Now, there's been a lot of conflict between the president and Chairman Powell at the Fed. The president is pushing for lower interest rates. And do you see lower interest rates coming over the next year or so?
Yeah, our team thinks that the Fed funds rate, which is now 4%, near 4%, will come down to around 3%. And they think that will happen between now and the middle of next year. And that'll kind of stay there because some of this growth and some of that in the policies promoting that growth will have a higher baseline inflation, which isn't altogether bad as long as the economy is growing and the rate structure is strong. So I think our economists believe that the Fed will bring down those rates, especially given the labor market uncertainty, to help the economy continue to grow. And that's a very constructive place for the United States to be in, is to have a nominal interest rate environment which is more normal than we've witnessed since the great financial crisis in 2007, 2008, and then have a growing economy and even a little more inflation, 2% inflation. We never got up to 2% hardly, and this is all this inflation by the pandemic and things was unusual. I think a little more robust growth, a little more inflation maybe attached to it, and a solid interest rate environment would be a good place for the U.S. to be.
Do you see confidence within CEOs about the future based on the new tax bill with some very favorable laws and the new environmental EPA laws and the lower interest rates? Do you see that CEOs are looking to invest more in over the next year or two?
Yeah, I mean, our CEOs are bullish on their opportunities, especially in the United States. Like I said, outside the United States, the CEOs are bullish on the U.S. opportunity because just the great market and the great economy that America is. And frankly, the tax uncertainty, which was closed out, so it's not an uncertainty anymore, was an issue because the debate was whether tax rates would have to go up or whether the bonus depreciation would somehow be curtailed, et cetera. That got through. That was extremely important. That took a major piece off the table and actually provided incentives, as you said, for business to invest, faster depreciation and things like that. I think the one key thing, and I think on both city, state, and federal level, is the pace at which the governments need to act to promote things to happen. So all over the country, when people say, we have a housing shortage, the need is to actually act quickly to permit housing. And it's tough because there's nothing more sacred to the American public than their home and their neighbors and all that stuff. But without the permitting process, a lot of this can't get done fast. And I think the advice that the business community gives the administration, I give every governor, state mayor, whoever I'll talk to, is think about the way you can make things more economic and speed up the pace of investment is by having them permitted faster and make the decisions faster and not delay the process. So I think the promise of that deregulation, which is still coming through at the federal level and at state levels to keep up with it, is a promise that will help. So tax certainty and the deregulation coming now, I think, will help as we move into 26.
I'm looking to reduce our exposure in the Northeast versus maybe investing in more in Florida. Have you seen that in other clients?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be so specific as Florida. I'd say that, because we're headquartered in North Carolina, that's a very, very good state, one of the best states to do business in, is voted by the many polls. And you watch the activity level of as I said, with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County authorities or the state authorities, and then saying our job is to help recruit jobs and recruit businesses and provide an atmosphere, and maybe not even big subsidies, just an atmosphere which they can grow and operate. The states that are focused on that are getting things done. And by the way, that's true for all different types of projects, including clean energy projects. If you look where they fell over the last many years and are continuing to be developed, a lot of them are in states who are getting the projects largely because their regulatory framework allows them to go forward. And so onshore wind and solar and geothermal and all these different things, you look where they're falling. So even in areas where there's a great debate about in the public domain, but the reality is it all comes down to creating the atmosphere to be competitive. When we look at our client bases and we can see our Bank of America customers moving around from city to city, we see cities, and we publish this data, we see cities that are focused on, I've got to help businesses locate here, attracting, we see people moving from city A to city B. And I was just talking to some colleagues in Northeast Ohio, and you're seeing that the Cleveland market grow because they basically said we've got to get the conditions right to get businesses in here, and our commercial loans in that market grew by 8% last year.
The future looks bright to me. I hope it looks bright to you too.
It looks bright because at the end of the day, the American capitalistic system is the best in the world, and as you look across, and I think we always got to remember that it has its pluses and minuses, and we got to keep making sure the people who competed as well or taken care of. That's all good stuff, but it works the best. So, John, I'm optimistic.
Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Dr. Peter Michalos. Live long and prosper is his motto. And Doctor, what are we going to do to live longer this week?
Well, today we're going to talk about a very important topic, which is breast cancer and prostate cancer and their prevention. And the number one cause of cancer deaths in the United States are lung cancer for both men and women. But number two is prostate cancer for men and breast cancer for women. And it's very important that we have early detection. And women need to start doing self-breast exams when they're 40. If you have a family history, a direct relative like a mother, a sister, a grandmother, then you always have to do self-breast exams while you're in the shower in a circular motion over the chest area. Both men and women can check. If you feel a lump, you need to speak to your doctor immediately. Mammography is recommended by age 40 for most women who are at high risk. Some people start at 45, but it's very important, especially if you've done genetic testing and you have the BRCA, the BRCA gene, and that is very important to check. It usually starts with a mammogram, which is a type of X-ray that looks for mass, and sometimes cancers have something called calcifications in it, which look like little white dots. If someone has fibrous or dense breasts, then they do ultrasound, and one of the ultimate tests is an MRI of the breast. And if you do have a lesion, they have ways now to put a tiny needle with a guided X-ray and put it in the exact spot, so then they bring it to the operating room and they can do something called lumpectomy, remove the bump. And the majority of these cases are women, but men also, there's been a rising amount of male breast cancer. The good news is there's a lot of new therapies. If it's isolated to the breast, you can get cured. If it spreads to the lymph nodes or other part of the body, then there are other therapies, including immune therapy. Some exciting news we've heard from some of the vaccine companies are they're taking samples of your personalized own breast tissue and making a vaccine that will make your own immune system attack that cancer. When it comes to prostate cancer, that's another situation with men. Of course, if you have a family history, breast cancer a little more elusive because you can't feel it yourself. A doctor can sometimes feel it during a digital rectal exam. The most common way to diagnose it early is with a PSA test called prostate-specific antigen, and it shows up in the bloodstream. When that's elevated, then you can get another test called a 3D MRI, which gives detailed anatomy and imaging. If they find abnormal spots in that three-dimensional MRI, then you get a prostate biopsy. Then you're given several options. Some people want to get the whole thing out, and if you go to somebody who specializes in robotic surgery, it can be removed with small incisions. And if the prostate cancer, which lives in like a saran wrap-like plastic, if it's not violated, the capsule they call it, then you can sometimes cure it. get the whole thing out and spare the nerve so that your anatomy functions okay. The other options are radioactive feed. Some people who are advanced stage can get hormonal therapy, which basically slows the growth down, and there are some new immune therapy, and they're also working on some cancer vaccines for the future. And I think these new blood will be done.
Another question. Me and you were speaking about the other day, we were speaking about taking drugs or vitamins made by certain countries. I guess it was India or China. The distributor in the United States, have they been checking into things like that, or what is your knowledge?
Well, I think that there are supposedly visiting inspectors for these things, but the question is that when it comes from various places, as we see the drug recalls, they found certain compounds like nitrosamines and things that are known carcinogens in some of the other countries that make a lot of the generic medicines. So I think that one of the areas we should not be cutting in the federal government is the FDA and the FDA inspections. And I think just like we do with meat and food, there should be random inspections of samples of various drugs from various companies. And sometimes even if something says USA made, it can be deceptive because they can be buying the chemicals from some of the countries that may or may not be doing proper inspection or analysis. For example, some of the medicines have been found to have heavy metals, just like we found out that certain chocolate bars.
Is there any liability? I mean, what have you heard among the doctors or among your knowledge? Is there any liability to the drug companies or the distributors?
Well, I think that they have a certain amount of protection, but I think you have to prove directly that it caused harm, death, or disability in order to bring a case. So that's the problem. But if you have a batch and you have a whole bunch of people who developed a certain cancer, then maybe you can get together a class action suit. But I think instead of lawsuits, I think the focus needs to be that the FDA,
I'm just concerned that some of these manufacturers or distributors are doing their homework to make sure the American people are protected, and that's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, I think there should be transparency and analysis, just like we have with some over-the-counter vitamins. We have good manufacturing practices certified, that there should be a publication, just like they list how many calories are in a food or a beverage, list that this product was randomly selected and analyzed, and they found that the arsenic level was this, or the nitrosamine levels were that, just like they do random water testing in various municipalities. Same thing.
Well, Dr. Peter Michalos, thank you for coming on, and thank you for everything you do to extend people's lives and keep people alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John, for always getting the truth out on the Cats Roundtable.
The Cats Roundtable.
What's going on with the GOP nationally? We have the right guy to talk to. We have Brian Jack, and he is now the congressman from Georgia, and now he's also looking forward to choosing. Now, I'm going to let you do the talking, Jack. Congressman, tell us, you won your seat handsomely, and you became number one in your class, and you're going to be the one looking for new congresspeople to run in the future. Tell us about it.
Well, thank you for having me, and again, it's Congressman Brian Jack from Georgia's 3rd Congressional District, and to your point, I'm the number 2 at the NRCC, so I'm the number 2 responsible for making sure House Republicans win next November. And I got to tell you, we obviously can dive into what happened on Tuesday, but what we are doing with recruiting, what you're seeing happen with redistricting, what you're seeing happen with what few retirements we have, all the data points to success next November for House Republicans, and it is critical that we win next November to deliver a majority for President Trump's second half of his second term.
I'm with you 110. You need common sense in America, and it looks like the Socialist Party is out to take over the Democratic Party. What do you have to say about that?
Without question, and you see this around the country, Democrats are retiring. You saw Nancy Pelosi retired yesterday. The old guard of Democrats are leaving, and the new guard coming in reflects what just happened here on Tuesday. The Democrat Socialists of America are taking over the Democrat Party, and that's a contrast you're going to see on full display next November. I can tell you the Republican candidates we are recruiting in Texas, in Illinois even, in states you wouldn't expect us to compete. In Iowa, we've got some great candidates coming online. We've got really good candidates that are going to take and prosecute that argument and demonstrate to their districts two paths. You can have prosperity with President Trump and House Republicans' platform, or you can have, as you noted, communism at its rawest form if you elect Democrat socialists to the House of Representatives.
Well, we are fighting for the soul of America. What happened the previous 4 years while President Trump was on the beach, to say, that made him even better president because he realized what was going on, is that I believe in immigration, but we were invaded. I mean, people came in, criminals came in from Venezuela, all the sick people. Venezuela opened up their hospitals and sent them all here. There was no controls on who's coming and going.
In the sinister thing about that, and you mentioned, I worked for President Trump for 9 years before I got elected to Congress. I was his political director throughout his entire post-presidency and when he was at the White House. The sinister thing over those 4 years of the Biden administration, when you've got 20 million people coming into our country, that's 20 million new votes for the Democrat Party. That is why they did what they did. And I want to commend the job that President Trump and Secretary Noem are doing. You've got the most secure border in the history of our country right now under his leadership. But if you like what's happening at our border because of President Trump in office, you have to elect House Republicans next November. If Democrats come in power, they will impeach him for a third, fourth, fifth time. We cannot let that happen. We've got to elect Republicans next November.
What I like what President Trump is doing, he I shouldn't say tweet, he sends out the truth.
Yes.
On Congress people that he likes and we should support. And I guess when I talk to him about somebody and he doesn't answer me, I guess he's not supporting.
That's generally, I mean, he, as you know, and I was privileged to be that guy for him. I was his political director, so I worked with him on those endorsements for many years, and he is certainly very fond of letting people know where he feels. But I want to tell you, one thing about him that's very unique is he cares deeply about the House ballot. He wants to make sure he understands what's at stake. He had to endure those two impeachments. So that's why you're seeing him yesterday, 2 days ago on Truth Social, 40 different endorsements came out within an hour. It's because he wants Republicans to get reelected to the House. We're working closely with him and his team to ensure we've got the best candidates to make sure, even here in New York, we can pick off some of these Democrat seats that flipped last cycle.
I will tell you what you need.
Tell me.
A lot of people like me, I got 1,000 phone calls. Oh, I want you to support me. I'm running for Kansas. I'm running for Arizona. Is there a hotline that business people can call the GOP and say, this is the one that President Trump recommends?
We can absolutely, to your point, yes, at the NRCC, but we can make that even more public. We can do a great job of making sure that everybody has a clear understanding of where the president feels on these races, and likewise, who's going to win. Because I recognize when you're getting called from people asking for support, it's difficult to discern who has the electable path and who doesn't. We can do our best job to make sure you know exactly who the president supports.
Well, I thank you so much, and we got to keep America America. And I'm an immigrant. I believe in immigration, but I don't believe in invasion.
And I think the challenge that you find with the Democrat Party today is they are so afraid, and I think you're going to see this in your own city, they're so afraid of being primaried from their left that they're going to go as far left as possible. They are beholden to the Democrat Socialists of America, and that is why you continue to see Democrats legislate in radical fashion, because they are afraid of losing primaries. I think that's exactly why we're in a shutdown today. That's why you're going to see the shutdown, unfortunately, the Democrat shutdown continue tomorrow, I'm sure, is because Democrats are afraid of their own base. They're afraid to stand up and do the right thing for America because they don't want to lose re-election.
Brian Jack, you have a great future in America. You know why? I can tell. You love America. Thank you for coming on, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. With us today is Jim Jordan. He's the head of the Judiciary Committee in Congress from the state of Ohio. What the heck is going on in our country? Tell us.
President Trump gave a speech, I think, last week on, I guess it was Wednesday down in Miami, and he talked about common sense versus communism. Of course, he was referring to what happened in your great city there, where we now have a socialist who's going to be the next mayor, and he might put the word Democrat in front of it, but it's still socialism. He wants to have government-run stores, for goodness sake. I spoke to him earlier this week.
Congressman, it's something important
ridiculous.
I have to tell you. When he gave his acceptance speech, he looked right at the camera and quasi-threatened the President of the United States.
To me, this was the key takeaway from the election. But you ask what we can do. We can focus on common sense. The radical left, which now controls their party, and is evidenced by the election there of the next mayor in New York City. It's crazy that mindset is now going to be the head of our greatest and largest city. So that, to me, was the real takeaway from the election this past week. I guess it was no surprise that you have three blue states, New Jersey, Virginia, California, and one really blue city where Democrats won. But in the really blue city, as you point out, really wasn't a Democrat. It was a socialist.
One of my concerns is it seems like, I know the Department of Justice was working on it, and I don't know if you have knowledge of it, that foreign money is influencing a lot of our elections.
Yeah, we're investigating, and we've had a number of people we've brought in for depositions, and we're getting information and documents on this. But this Act Blue, this online fundraising operation for the left, for the Democrats, because it was just unprecedented the amount of money they raised in the last congressional elections and the elections in 24. I mean, you were having candidates raising $2 and $3 million, congressional candidates raising $2 and $3 million a quarter. So much of it was from online and Act Blue. So we continue to look at that. We think there may be some concerns there that foreign money is coming through there, and that's, of course, not allowed under our election laws. So we'll keep that investigation up and see what we find.
It seems like the Democrats and Republicans are further apart than ever before. Because I've heard there was a lot of unreasonable items that the Democrats are demanding, and it's not necessarily for American citizens. Tell the American people what the most unreasonable items are.
Well, I think, this idea that they want to take your tax dollars and use it for health care for people who are not citizens of this country, who entered this country illegally, that makes no sense. And that's the position that was in their alternative to the bill we passed. And remember, what we passed to keep the government open was a simple legislation that said continue the funding at the current levels. There's a reason it's called a continuing resolution, because it continues the current level of funding that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats all supported just 6 months ago. But now they won't, because they say, we need to further extend the subsidy that was put in place to help Obamacare, because Obamacare didn't work, and all the things that they told us about Obamacare turned out to be false. Like, you like your plan, keep your plan, like your doctor, keep your doctor, premiums that go down. None of that worked. So now they have to keep putting more and more taxpayer money in it, and to take care of folks who aren't here legally, et cetera. So we need to just get back to common sense, as the president said. I will never forget, John, when Sarah Huckabee Sanders gave the response to the State of the Union a few years ago, and in her response she used this line. She said, "The divide in America today is normal versus crazy." And we need to just focus on normal, common sense, American principles, American policies. That's what I think brings our country together. That's what we need to focus on. And if we do that, I think we'll be just fine.
It just seems like we woke up one day and all of a sudden we're funding all kinds of crap that doesn't make any normal sense.
Yeah, where it came from is the hard left, which now unfortunately controls the Democrat Party. I mean, I always say not all Democrats are crazy, but the left that controls their party is. The same left that ran off the list about defunding the police, all the things they support. The same left that says you shouldn't have to show photo ID when you go to vote. The same left that says you shouldn't have to demonstrate you're actually a citizen of this country when you go to vote. I mean, that is the left that controls their party. Where we go is we look at the things we put in the big beautiful bill: largest tax cut in history, largest investment in making sure our border stays secure in American history. We had in there work requirements for able-bodied adults. You're an able-bodied adult, and you're now getting money from the taxpayer. Guess what? In the future, under this law, you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to volunteer. You're going to actually work. And finally, what we also put in this bill, which I think is good for the country, good policy, is the first time in our federal tax code we have an incentive for school choice, where you give to a foundation that's helping with school choice, you get a tax break. We think that is really positive in helping improve our education system for all kinds of kids, all kinds of families around the country.
Are we working on at least on federal elections that you have to have proof of citizenship?
Great question. Yes, we have. We have a bill that's passed the House before, has not gotten through the Senate. It's a good piece of legislation, and it's, again, the word we keep talking to and keep referring to that President Trump said in his speech and focused on Wednesday is common sense. Those kind of things we need to continue to push and be for.
Jim Jordan, thank you for everything you do in Washington, and let's catch up again real soon.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks for all your good work.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is former Brigadier General Blaine Holt. He was the Deputy United States Military Representative to NATO and knows a little bit about airplanes. What the heck happened to that UPS airplane that crashed?
It's first off, it's great to be with you, but what a devastating and really statistically improbable event. UPS runs a really tight ship on aviation. They had a jet was sitting at Baltimore. They took off. This bird then lands at their world port in Kentucky. Wasn't really slated to go do something else, and my understanding at this point is it underwent some number 2 engine maintenance. But then they had a shift in the schedule, and this bird then gets tapped for a flight from Kentucky all the way to Honolulu. Now, that's an important fact here because that means you've got to load up that cargo jet and all the gas you can pack onto it for what it's about to go fly. That means it's as heavy as it's going to be getting off that runway. And my understanding is the engine just fell off. It's only held on by 3 bolts, but those bolts work all the time. These are massive, massive bolts. When it falls off, hits the runway, creates the sparks. The sparks go into the gushing gasoline from the rupture, and then you see the inevitable outcome, the flame ball. Likely it's going to be 20 killed out of this thing. I think we have 12 confirmed dead so far, still people missing, but it's horrific. And then as an Air Force officer, I know tons and tons of people I served with who are at UPS. We're still looking for names. So that's where we're at right now.
That is so horrible. I mean, things like that don't happen. I mean, when was the last time you heard of an engine falling off?
I've been around so many aviation incidents. I've investigated aviation incidents. I have never seen anything like this, especially with professional heavies. If a civilian outfit doesn't maintain their aircraft properly, I've seen those. But not at this level of aviation. This is the pinnacle. This is the top. They have such exacting standards in this part of the FAR or the FAA regulations. So it's absolutely shocking to me. It's shocking to all of my peers who fly.
And it's just, and a lot of people were killed in that trucking plant.
Yeah, and we're going to find out, unfortunately, about more. Because it's such a devastating scene. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of pounds of jet fuel that ignited, and it's going to be a very slow process here going forward to get all the recoveries and identifications done. And our hearts just go out to the families of the air crew. And then what we have to do in the investigation phase, John, we got to go find out how this happened. We got to go find out how the maintenance was operated on this airplane and find out where we are. And I can't help but think about, is the investigation going to be hampered because of the government shutdown being laid over the top of it?
Mind-boggling. Now, me and you have spoken many times before about not about pilots and co-pilots, whether it's military aircraft or whether it's civilian aircraft. Is there any update on it? We had an event, a cocktail party for Congress people, and one of them was the chair of the and I forget his name, the chair of the Transportation Committee, and he didn't seem very energetic on it.
They're not, and they don't understand that they're playing with fire. We went through 4 years of taking Department of Transportation money and reallocating them to DEI and woke programs and preferential hiring practices up and down the entire transportation enterprise. And that Congress is just basically ho-hum on this. What kind of disasters are we going to have before we get what we need is a top-down review of every element of the transportation system? You and I talk about this all the time. Statistically, it's absolutely improbable that you would have this many incidents in a 1 year span of time.
That is mind-boggling. Well, thank you for staying on top of this, General. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Steve Cates, otherwise known as Dr. Sky, and he always enlightens us on what the heck is going on up in the skies. Well, Steve Cates, what things do you have for us today that'll, I guess, move our minds?
Well, John, here's a big one. The sun now continuing through its solar cycle, 25. Many have thought that the solar cycle is slowing down. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. We're finding out, John, that recently, within days ago, 2 major solar X flares. Those are very powerful flares on the sun, which means that during this week, as we begin a new week, we may be indeed seeing these geomagnetic storms. And let's see, we'll keep our fingers crossed that they're not these massive solar flares, but who can tell? The scientists do the best they can, but like the sun, Mother Nature rules, right? It's incredible what comes from the sun.
Someday we'll find out more about the things really happening and how everything interacts, because it seems like the Earth, like we talk about it every week, the Earth is a living entity doing what it has to do to keep human beings going.
You're right, John. The Earth has an incredible absorption to take and control these different extinction events. And obviously, that's a fantastic story to be on this planet. But, John, looking into space sciences, how about this? Later today on Sunday, Jeff Bezos may be launching his New Glenn rocket. That's like an equivalent, a little less powerful than what, of course, Elon Musk is doing with Starship. So this launch may take place today. It could have a window to launch his rocket, 2:45 p.m. on this Sunday date. But what's important about it, John, they're going to have on board 2 spacecraft that are headed toward Mars. They're called the Escapade, little satellites. They're little probes, and they're going to study Mars radiation. And what's interesting, they both have names. One is called Blue, and one is called Gold. And we wish them well. Bezos is, of course, very competitive to SpaceX, and we'll have to see exactly what happens.
Understood. What else?
Yes, plenty of stuff, John. SpaceX developing their Starship HLS lunar lander. That's called the Human Launch System. What's that? Well, if they can get the Starship rocket that's on top of his big booster to function the way they should, to put and make it safe for astronauts, they're also contracted, among other companies, to help build a Starship lunar lander. So it would be that long, skinny object that's on the top of his massive rocket. But, John, as you and I have talked before, you better make sure when that long, skinny rocket makes a soft landing on the moon that the legs are far and wide apart, right, John? Because other spacecraft have tried much smaller, and when they got to the surface, they tipped over. So we wish SpaceX, as they develop this, hopefully to put humans on the moon, maybe as early as 2028. We'll have to see, John. That's amazing.
Well, about that tipping over, for smart people, they did stupid things.
Right. So hopefully, the longer the rocket is and the taller it is, you better make sure, like the Apollo, that's why the Apollo landing craft, the lunar module, had wide legs and a short height in stature. So let's see if they can perfect this, hopefully, and make a soft landing on the moon. John, we always end off with the mystery of the week, and here's a good one. Here's the question. Why did Venus turn inside and out? What does that mean? Well, John, the second planet from the sun is a strange enigma. If you and I were to go there, we don't want to. The temperature on the surface is 900 degrees Fahrenheit. It's always encased in clouds like sulfuric acid. And not only that, John, the pressures, if we were to go there, we've sent spacecraft, the pressures are as if you and I went underwater 3,000 feet. It crushes spacecraft. So what happened to Venus? We don't know. It doesn't have plate tectonics like the massive continental shifts like Earth does. So mostly massive volcanoes from bombardments from space when it was hit by asteroids billions of years ago. Mars, John, spins backwards instead of its direction like the Earth goes. So on the planet Venus, you would see the sun rising in the west. And, John, it takes a long time. The day on Venus is longer than its year. What a strange place, don't you think?
Yes, it is. I mean, there's so much to learn, and there's so much that how all these planets work. And like I said, someday we'll find out more.
Absolutely, John. Always a privilege and honor to be here. And thanking you and everybody for the opportunity to be behind the microphone. We always talk, you and I, opening our minds about the great mysteries of the universe, many still left unsolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Cates, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, John. Have a good morning.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Lynn Shaw. We care about children in our country. Well, Lynn, what do you have for us today?
Can you imagine, John, that we have to talk about caring about our precious kids? We've got a lot going on. First of all, we have our mayor-elect. I want to point out, he believes in his history the full decriminalization of the sex trade. And I want to explain why this is so urgent and important that every New Yorker understand what this means. He believes, even though he didn't do this, John, during his campaigning, that you can grow up and be a sex worker. This is so important to understand because we know inherently the sex trade is not only criminal, but it is to people so harmful. And we have to do better, and we have to talk about it. And we have to educate everybody, John, that this is going on because they're slipping it under the carpet. And I'm afraid we're going to wake up one day and you know what? Our kids are going to school. They'll be in 4th, 5th grade. We'll have a career day. You could be a nurse, doctor, teacher, parent, and you can also be a sex worker. It's a very important topic to talk about 24/7, 365. So we got that going on. And then, John, we got Congress.
And Lynn, it seems like we're fighting for the soul of America. I mean, when did all this happen? It wasn't like this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
But, John, what we have to do now in America is we have to, what you are saying is correct, okay? We have to block that out. We got to move to the other side of our brain and say this is a new world, a new country. We got to deal with what we have. And we have to be strong, and we have to keep chipping away at these evil forces because, John, I can think of no other why this is all happening, and especially against our kids, because how do you affect changing the society? You go after the babies, the children, the future adults, the future American leaders, and that is exactly what they're doing. We have to realize, yes, it's evil. It's horrific, but we got to wake up. We can't be scared. We got to talk about it, and we have to fight back because we have truth and facts on our side. But fighting back means, John, talking to our kids, really trying to instill values. It's a very tough thing today because everybody is dispersed because of the internet. Everybody, kids are seeing things, at 4, 5, 6 years old on the internet because their parents are allowing it. So we have to realize everything is evil. They're out to get our children. We say at the Warriors, there is a war on for our children because there is. And we all have to come together as a community and say we're going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about not only with each other, we're going to talk to schools, to places of worship, and to our kids that this is going on. Our kids have to handle it. We have to be honest and open about it. And we, unfortunately, I mean, John, this is just incredible, the things that we are dealt with at the Warriors every day, the attacks on children. And that brings me to the next point. We're dealing now, John, with Congress, the 119th Congress. We have a great piece of bipartisan legislation, the Kids Online Safety Act. We don't know. This is the fault of the Republicans right now, John. They are holding this piece of legislation up. We've been working 4 years into this now, and they won't bring it up to a vote. That's all we need. We've gone through all the way up the ladder, John. It's 91-3, in the Senate. Now it's sitting in the House, and we're going towards the end of this congressional, time period. It is a crunch. We have 420 organizations, bipartisan, that have stepped up. They want this piece of legislation, and I'll tell you why, John, because it puts the duty of care, the protection of children, big tech is held accountable. They have to, in their design. We have lots of studies, lots of things telling us, you know what? They're designing things on purpose that harm our children because they make money from it, and they keep the eyeballs on it, and that's what it's about, advertisers. So we want them. Parents can't handle this, John. They're overwhelmed, and they're trying to pay the bills, and who could keep up with all this? So Kids Online Safety Act, we are demanding, we are urgent that they bring this to a vote right now. Speaker Mike Johnson and others, Chuck Schumer, we don't understand the holdup about all. And we spend at the Warriors hours a day urging, our co-sponsors, urging different offices, educating them and saying, help us get this to a vote. And this is very distressing right now.
Well, thank you for putting it out there, because it's the only way we're going to, if all of us keep talking about it, someday it's going to happen.
That's exactly right, John. And you know how appreciative we are at the Warriors that you showcase this, because we need everybody to understand what is happening. So thank you so much for showcasing us all the time.
Lynn Shaw, keep fighting for our kids, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Talk soon.
What the heck is going on in the markets? With us today is John Terrett. John, give us your pulse.
Well, last week was a volatile week, that's for sure. And there were three key reasons for that. First of all, those reduced operations in U.S. airlines cut by 10% because of the ongoing shutdown. We had the Supreme Court of the United States looking at the legality of President Trump's global tariffs, and the justices seemed a bit dubious or skeptical when they heard oral arguments. President Trump says, look, if you don't go with us, this is going to be devastating for the U.S. economy. And as you rightly identify, of course, the election on Tuesday of Mamdani, though it may have been tempered a little bit by an announcement on Friday that Republican Elise Stefanik is going to run. She has announced that she will run for the governorship of New York next November, which means Mamdani has a year to get his policy through before she blocks him at every turn. Company news, Tesla board approved the Elon Musk $1 trillion pay package. 75% of them voted in favor. And you know what they were saying, John, don't you? They were saying, don't you ever leave us for government ever again. Here's $1 trillion. McDonald's topping Wall Street expectations. They still talk about value, though, and some of the pressures, her customers being under pressure. And here's a really big story. Get this. Comcast, owners of NBC and CNBC, offering $1.6 billion to buy ITV in the United Kingdom, their free-to-air television channels. And that is the equivalent of Comcast buying ABC or Fox here. Crypto story of the week. Robinhood is considering adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. And John, in the week ahead on Monday, we hear from Tyson Foods and Skydance Paramount, who now owns CBS. On Tuesday, President Trump meets the Syrian president at the White House. He's a controversial figure. He used to be part of Al-Qaeda, for goodness sake. On Thursday, the Walt Disney Company, and on Friday, Walmart will give us the first of their Black Friday sales ahead of Thanksgiving. John?
Well, John Terrett, thank you for the update, and let's pray for America. And I still think the markets are now undervalued, and let's see what happens.
Well, you keep talking about 50,000, and I think you're right to, but we must remember the path to Dow 50,000 will not be straight up. There will be divergences, as we saw last week.
Understood. Thank you for your update, and then we'll talk again real soon.
Okay. Thanks, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. Every Sunday morning, we'll bring you the latest in what's happening in our community, our country, and the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a nice Sunday.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.